My parents took me to court for buying a house. Even now, saying that sentence out loud feels unreal, like I'm describing someone else's life, not my own. But that's how the unraveling of my family began. Not with an argument, not with a misunderstanding, with a legal notice addressed to me as if I were a stranger who had crossed them. My name is Eloise, and for years I made the mistake of believing that peace was earned by silence. I grew up in a home where my father Malcolm operated like a self-appointed judge, and my mother Rosalind played mediator by guilt. My younger sister Celeste lived on the softest cushion of their affection, untouched by the expectations that shaped me. She never had to earn approval. It arrived for her automatically. I learned early that fairness was not a guest in our house. But discipline? That one lived with me. For 6 long years, I saved every penny I could. I packed lunches, skipped outings, ignored sales, and watched my bank balance grow slowly but steadily. When friends upgraded apartments or took spontaneous trips, I stayed behind my laptop, hair tied back, eyes burning, reminding myself that this sacrifice was temporary. Freedom was the goal. A home of my own was the dream. The night I told my family I finally had enough for a down payment, I naively believed they would be happy. Rosalind lit candles like we were celebrating a holiday. "Oh, sweetheart, I knew your hard work would pay off someday," she exclaimed. Malcolm nodded with that heavy approval he rarely gave. Real estate is a clever choice. Just be smart with it. For a moment, I felt seen. Just a flicker, but real. Then Celeste, stirring her iced tea without looking at me, murmured, "Some of us are still buried in grad school debt. Must be lucky to earn that engineering salary." The resentment in her voice was familiar, a shadow she never bothered to hide. I offered her a gentle smile and said, "You're doing well at your firm. You'll get there." She didn't respond. She didn't need to. The heaviness in the room already shifted back around her, the way it always did. Still, I didn't let it dim the excitement. I toured neighborhoods, compared interest rates, and studied every hallway, window, and doorknob of the houses I visited. Then I found it. A modest 2-story home tucked on a quiet street at the edge of the city. Not luxurious, not perfect, but peaceful. Mine. The day I signed the contract, my hands trembled. 6 years condensed into a single signature. I thought the hardest part was behind me. I was wrong. 3 days after closing, I sat on the floor of my new living room. Boxes stacked everywhere, my hair tied up, a screwdriver still in my hand. I was sweaty, exhausted, but proud, until my phone buzzed nonstop. At first, I ignored it. Then Mara, my closest friend, sent a message. "Eloise, you need to see this now." A screenshot followed. My stomach dropped. Celeste had posted publicly, "When your sister uses the money Grandma saved for your future home and buys one for herself?" Unbelievable. Hundreds of likes, comments from strangers calling me selfish. I froze. There was no inheritance set aside for Celeste. No special fund. Not $1 of my down payment came from family money. Before I could gather myself, my phone rang again. "Dad." Against my better judgment, I answered. "Evening, Eloise," Malcolm said, voice clipped and formal. "We need to talk about the house situation." "What situation?" I asked cautiously. Rosalind's voice drifted behind him, full of guilt-soaked concern. "Sweetheart, don't make this harder. You know what we're upset about." "No," I said firmly, "I really don't." Malcolm exhaled sharply. "Your mother and I spoke with an attorney. The funds intended for Celeste's first home were always meant for her. You knew that." My heart pounded. "What funds? That money never existed. I bought the house myself." Silence filled the line, cold, heavy, deliberate. Then Malcolm delivered the blow that split the world beneath my feet. "That house belongs to your sister." I sank down onto the stairs, gripping the railing. "Dad, this is ridiculous. I have every record, every payslip, every transfer." "You're being difficult," he snapped. "Celeste needs that house more than you do. You're in a stable career. You can buy another." "As if 6 years can be repeated like a weekend errand," I whispered. "We'll be filing in court tomorrow," Malcolm said, final and icy. The call ended, no goodbye. I stared at my new walls, the ones I had dreamed of, for the first time feeling like a trespasser in my own home. That night, Mara showed up with dinner and fierce protectiveness written all over her face. "You're not crazy," she said. "They're trying to take your house." A moment later, Ashton, her brother, stepped inside. He wasn't usually so serious. "Eloise," he said quietly, "you need legal help. They're not bluffing. I spent the night at Mara's apartment, too shaken to be alone. The next morning, Ashton returned with a folder and the name of a lawyer who specialized in inheritance and property disputes. Vivian Hale. We met her the same afternoon. Her office overlooked the city, calm, structured, the opposite of the chaos I felt. Vivian listened to everything without interrupting. When I finished, she folded her hands. This case is fabricated, but fabricated claims can still create real damage, she said. Bring me every financial record you have. We'll also need witnesses who can verify that the inheritance was equal. I nodded. My Uncle Raymond and my Aunt Miriam. Good, contact them immediately. Raymond answered on the second ring. When I told him what was happening, he didn't hesitate. Your grandmother would be furious, he said. I'll support you. Miriam's voice trembled when she heard the situation. I always feared this, she said. Your father pressured your grandparents to give Celeste more. They refused. He never let it go. I'll testify. Piece by piece, the truth formed. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This had been brewing for years. But the moment that changed everything came 2 nights later when Mara and I returned to my house to collect a few more belongings. The porch light flickered. A shadow moved. Someone was trying to open my front door. Celeste. She held a key that didn't belong to her, shoving it into the lock. What are you doing? I yelled. She spun around, startled. I just wanted to see inside. It's going to be mine anyway. That moment became evidence, real evidence of the entitlement Vivian warned me about. And that was when I realized this wasn't just a family conflict. This was a war they expected me to lose. But I was done being quiet. The morning of the first hearing arrived like a storm I'd been watching crawl across the sky for weeks. Predictable, yet still terrifying. I couldn't shake the image of Celeste at my door, her fingers jamming a stolen key into my lock while she declared a house she'd never worked a day for as hers. That image followed me like a shadow all week. Vivian Hale was waiting for me outside the courthouse, standing tall in a charcoal suit, calm as still water. She radiated a confidence I desperately needed. You did the right thing documenting everything, she said as soon as I joined her. The more your family behaves impulsively, the stronger our case becomes. I never imagined I'd hear the words, our case, referring to me against my parents, I whispered. Vivian's gaze softened. People do strange things when entitlement becomes their worldview. Inside the courthouse, the hallway buzzed with muted chatter, shuffling papers, and the echoes of hurried footsteps. We headed to Courtroom 7, a room that would decide the fate of my home and, in many ways, the fate of my relationship with my family. Malcolm and Roslyn were already there. My father looked crisp and collected, wearing his favorite navy tie, stiff posture, chin slightly raised, like he believed the ruling was already in his favor. Roslyn clutched a folder to her chest, eyes rimmed red, playing the image of the wounded mother. Celeste sat between them, unbothered, scrolling through her phone. The sight of them hit me harder than any legal notice ever could. Vivian leaned in slightly. Remember, they came after you, not the other way around. The judge assigned to the case was Judge Carter, a stern-faced man with steel gray hair and a reputation for valuing clear evidence over emotional theatrics. As soon as he called the courtroom to order, the tension thickened. Malcolm's attorney, a polished man named Briggs, opened their argument with a voice dripping in false sympathy. Your Honor, my clients are simply seeking the rightful restoration of property originally designated for their second daughter, Celeste Turner. There was a long-standing family agreement. Objection! Vivian cut in, rising smoothly. Unless opposing counsel intends to present written evidence of such an agreement, this claim is hearsay. Judge Carter looked at Briggs. Do you have documentation? Briggs cleared his throat. At this time, no written agreement exists, but... Then proceed with caution, the judge warned. Vivian sat, offering me a small nod. It grounded me. Briggs continued, stretching the truth until it nearly snapped. He painted me as selfish, as calculating, as someone who had strategically acquired property meant for her sister. When he finally finished, Judge Carter turned toward our table. Ms. Hale, your response. Vivian stood, the room shifted around her. Your Honor, the plaintiff, Ms. Eloise Turner, bought her home entirely with her own earnings. Every payment, every transfer, every saved dollar is documented. The defendants have provided no proof, none, that the house or its funds were ever promised to anyone else. She paused for effect. and we will be presenting testimony from family members who can confirm the equal distribution of inheritance. Judge Carter nodded. Proceed. Vivian called Uncle Raymond first. He walked to the witness stand with steady steps, adjusting his glasses before raising his right hand to be sworn in. When he sat, he looked directly at the judge, not at my parents. Mr. Raymond Turner, Vivian began, can you tell the court how the inheritance from your mother, Eloise's grandmother, was distributed? Equally, he said without hesitation. My mother believed strongly in fairness. Eloise and Celeste each received the same amount, exactly the same. Briggs objected, how can you confirm exact amounts? Because I was executor of the will, Raymond replied. I handled the transfers myself. A ripple went through the courtroom. Vivian continued her questions, establishing that the inheritance was modest and nowhere near enough to buy a house. My house was built entirely from my own work. Then came Aunt Miriam, small and nervous but determined. My mother refused to give Celeste more than Eloise, she said, voice trembling but clear. Malcolm pressured her many times, but she never agreed. She believed in treating the girls equally. Briggs tried to trap her with speculative questions, but Miriam didn't budge. When she stepped down, Vivian whispered to me, they're helping more than they realize. But the storm wasn't over. Briggs called my father to testify. Malcolm walked to the stand like a man confident he was about to win. Mr. Turner, Briggs began, in your own words, why did you contest your daughter's home purchase? My wife and I made a commitment years ago, Malcolm replied. We decided that Celeste would receive priority when it came to housing, since Eloise already had a strong career. It was a family expectation. Vivian stood. Objection. No documented agreement, no witnesses, no written proof. But Malcolm kept talking, his voice rising, emotion leaking through his carefully controlled tone. Celeste struggled more. She deserved the security. Eloise is the responsible one. She always has been. She can rebuild. Celeste can't. There it was. The truth behind all the lies. Not fairness. Not inheritance. Preference. Judge Carter scribbled something, expression unreadable. Then Briggs called Celeste. She strutted to the stand like someone going to accept an award. Miss Turner, Briggs said, did you understand the house to be yours originally? Yes, she said confidently. My parents always told me Grandma wanted me to have a place of my own. Eloise knew that. But there's no documentation, Vivian pointed out. Celeste's expression cracked. Not everything needs to be written down. Some things are just understood. Vivian approached the stand. Miss Turner, can you explain why you attempted to enter my client's house late at night 2 days ago? A hush fell. Celeste blinked rapidly. I wasn't breaking in. I just wanted to see the layout. I thought it would be mine. So you tried to use a key that wasn't yours? It was borrowed. Vivian said, her tone like a scalpel. Borrowed. Without permission. Celeste shrank back. The courtroom seemed to lean forward. Judge Carter lifted a hand. We will resume tomorrow morning. Both sides prepare your closing arguments. And just like that, the gavel struck, echoing like thunder. As we stepped outside, Vivian turned to me. They're unraveling, she said. Tomorrow, things will break open. I swallowed hard. Because somewhere deep inside, I knew she was right. For a few seconds, the courtroom felt like a vacuum. Silent, airless, suspended in disbelief. The only sound came from the ceiling fan slicing through the tension. Judge Carter slowly removed his glasses, placed them on the bench, and stared at us as if he couldn't believe the family he was watching tear itself apart. Ashton, he said finally, voice heavy, approach the bench. My brother's jaw tightened. He stood up reluctantly, walking like a man heading toward a trap he never saw coming. He tried to keep his composure, but the swagger he walked in with earlier had vanished. His eyes flicked toward Mara, my so-called sister-in-law, who wouldn't even look at him. Raymond was frozen. Celeste was trembling. Vivian held her breath. And I felt an eerie calm wash over me. Not pride, not revenge, just clarity. Ashton stood before the judge. Judge Carter tilted his head. Do you know what the penalties are for intentionally creating conflict in probate matters through deceit? Ashton swallowed. Your Honor, I didn't... You didn't what? Judge Carter cut him off. Didn't misrepresent the ownership of your sister's home? Didn't conspire to lock her out of her lawful property? Didn't attempt to claim assets that were never yours to begin with? The murmurs returned louder this time. Mara finally stood up. Your Honor, if I may— No, Judge Carter snapped. You may not. She sank back down, face flushed with panic. My father, Malcolm, rose abruptly. Carter, Judge Carter, Ashton is my son. He made mistakes, yes, but this is a family matter. We can resolve this privately. Judge Carter gave him a long, cold look. You stood before me an hour ago and argued that your daughter was irresponsible and unworthy of her inheritance. Now you want to handle everything privately? You don't get to switch lanes when the consequences no longer suit you. A new wave of whispers swept across the courtroom. Miriam put a hand on my arm. Stay calm, she whispered. The truth is carrying itself. And it was. For the first time, I felt it in my bones. Judge Carter sat back. This case has demonstrated extraordinary manipulation from multiple parties. Therefore, my decision will be comprehensive. I felt my stomach tighten. First, he said, I hereby affirm that Eloise Grant is the sole and rightful beneficiary of her late mother's will. All assets, including property, land, and financial accounts, are hers alone, irrevocably. My chest tightened with relief. Vivian covered her mouth. Celeste began to cry quietly. Raymond exhaled as though he'd been holding his breath since childhood. Judge Carter continued. Second, the attempted seizure of her property and the falsified claims made to this court constitute grounds for legal consequences. However, his gaze swept across my family like a surgeon preparing an incision. I am granting the defendants one opportunity to settle this civilly rather than criminally. He fixed his stare directly on Ashton. You will compensate your sister for emotional and property-related damages. The amount will be determined by mediation. You will also issue a written admission of wrongdoing, and you will sign a formal agreement stating that you will never interfere with her inheritance, property, or finances again. Ashton's mouth hung open. Your Honor, this is going to ruin me. Judge Carter didn't blink. Son, you did that yourself. Mara whispered something to Ashton, but he jerked his arm away from her. And third, Judge Carter said, looking at Malcolm, you will also submit a written statement retracting your earlier claims about your daughter's character and finances. That statement will be entered into the court record. Silence. I stared at my father. His face had turned a strange shade between anger and humiliation. He didn't look at me. He didn't even look at Ashton. He looked at the floor, the way a man looks at the pieces of something he smashed but can never put back together. Court is adjourned, Judge Carter declared, striking the gavel once. The sound echoed like thunder. The minute we stepped into the hallway, Ashton exploded. This is your fault, he shouted at me, pointing like a child who broke a toy and blamed the closest person. You could have let it go. You could have shared. I didn't raise my voice, not this time. You tried to steal everything from me, Ashton, including my home. That house was supposed to be ours, he snapped. It was Mom's, I answered, and she chose, not you. Mara tugged his sleeve. Ashton, please, let's just go. I'm not leaving, he barked, jerking away from her again. I'm not signing anything. But Raymond stepped forward. Yes, you are. Ashton turned. Don't start with me. No, Raymond replied quietly. You don't get to do this anymore. Not to her. Not to any of us. He paused. Mom isn't here to protect her, so we will. Celeste joined him, Vivian too. For the first time in my life, I saw something break in Ashton. Not responsibility, not regret, but the realization that he no longer had power over anyone in this hallway. Malcolm approached me then, slow, hesitant, like a man walking toward a door that may or may not open. Eloise, he said quietly, You what? I asked. Want to apologize? Because Judge Carter told you to? He flinched. No, because I was wrong. I stared at him, searching for sincerity. His shoulders sagged, his voice trembled. It was the first unguarded moment I'd seen from him in years. I was cruel, he said. I believed the wrong people. I didn't protect you when your mother passed. I failed you. My eyes burned. I don't expect forgiveness, he whispered, but I hope one day you'll let me earn it. I nodded once. Not forgiveness, not closure, just acknowledgement, and that was enough for now. He stepped back, giving me space. Ashton and Mara stormed out of the courthouse. Malcolm followed them a minute later. Raymond, Celeste, and Vivian stayed with me while Miriam handled the paperwork. When everything was signed, sealed, and stamped, Miriam handed me the final file. It's done, she said. It's officially, legally, unquestionably yours. I held the papers in my hands, the weight of them lighter than the years leading to this day. Thank you, I whispered. She placed a hand on my shoulder. Your mother would be proud. When I returned home that evening, the real home, the one they tried to take, I opened every window, let the light in, let the air move through the rooms again. On my mother's old writing desk, I placed the court papers and my house keys. Then I spoke aloud into the empty room, into the silence she once filled. I kept it, Mom. I kept everything you left me. And for the first time since she passed, I felt like I could breathe.